Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about the new Titan Crystal. So in case you guys didn't know, I don't know whether you have been living under a rock or something, but a Titan Crystal is changing. That means that Hitmonkey, Red Hulk, Spiral, Scream, Jack and Rintra will exit the Titan Crystal. And the new champions that will enter the Titan Crystal are Nico, Carolina Dean, High Evolutionary, The Maker, Baron Zemo, and Cassandra Nova. So this is my own personal kind of ranking of those champions. It's not necessarily my wish list, because obviously I already do have like Jean Grey and Spider-Woman and Yelena and Okoye, but this is the way I see them currently standing in between themselves in the game. Now, again, it is worth noting out that I'm not super sure where to put in, let's say, High Evolutionary and Cassandra Nova, because I have been hearing of fairly mixed things. I do not have the biggest amount of experience with either of those champions myself, but it's just basically from the testimony of other high-ranked players, my viewers, and my own kind of impressions of these champions. Cassandra might end up being slightly higher, but I do have my doubts. I'm still not entirely sold on her, and similar thing to High Evolutionary. With High Evolutionary, obviously offensively he is fairly doo-doo for doo-doo pants, but defensively he is somewhat of a good stall defender, and he's the highest prestige in the game, so nonetheless I personally want him obviously as well. Alright, so let's just start from the bottom, and Spidey Supreme, I actually like him more than many of the other people do. I think he's kind of cool. When a fight goes well with him, it's great. When you see a rank 4 Mystic Spidey, he's very dangerous, because if you're not going to get a good counter, you can get wrecked by him fast, especially in some specific metas. But for most part, there are, better options. He's definitely not one of the more desirable champions there. Majority of the people will not want to use a champion that's so squishy that requires you to constantly intercept. Yes, you do have a safety net, but still. I do think he's kind of like the best of the bottom tier. He would stand in somewhere here. I don't think he's as bad as these guys. I don't think he's good as these guys. I think he's somewhere here. Right, so the next up is Falcon, Hawk, and Taurus. Now, he's okay. As in, like, every single champion in this Titan Crystal is at the very least objectively considered as good. None of them are completely awful. The thing with the Falcon is just no reason for you to do anything with him. Anything that he does, there are a ton of other champions that do better. He doesn't take as many matchups as, the better science champions. He's not as fast as the better science champions. He doesn't have as much utility as the better science champions. He has no defensive value, unlike many of the other better science champions. So that's why he's there. He's kind of like he's decently good. He's just not good enough to do anything with him. And that's why he's at the bottom. Now we have Cyclops. And Cyclops is a very, very cool champion. Again, quite fun, useful in specific situations. Not a successful buff in my opinion. And the main thing that kind of ruins him is, and this is always the way I try to explain Cyclops. Whenever I use Cyclops against any meaningful defender, every single fight I wished I was using a different mutant champion. That's the best way to describe it. Like, his Sig ability and adrenaline mechanic is just not good enough. For instance, when you have Jean, while her shield is active, you just ignore physical damage, right? Or you can use Cyclops, and you're going to ignore some of it, and you can regen back some of it, and still end up taking damage. So when using him against Korg, you need to make a decision, for instance, whether you want to play perfectly with your light intercepts and so on and so forth, or you can fight freely, but you're going to be taking damage. Not as much as just about any other champion in the game, but still, you will. And the end result is, no. He's very fun for questing. And again, this is like very much a competitive player's ranking. This isn't a, casual, like, which champions will be fun for EQ. I think any champion can be fun for EQ. I think just about any of them can put in work in story content and whatnot. But when it comes to, like, top tier competitive play, I don't think he's just good enough for most part. And then there's the Maker, the Mr. Noodle Hands. Such a cool character that has been, so far, such a big disappointment. So, I'm not gonna discuss it much further. He's one of the champions that I don't have in the new Titan Crystal, and he's definitely a champion that I don't care that I don't have. Like, I'm going to be opening a bunch of Titan Crystals today, and I absolutely do not want to see him there, but that probably means I will. He's just not good enough. His playstyle, again, is finicky. His damage is not quite good enough, and yeah, he lives there. I think that's fine. The Galen, I think Galen's cool. I think Galen has turned from one of the best Cosmic champions into kind of like a meta or matchup merchant type champion. I think his defensive threat has been like significantly reduced, and offensively, you know, a rank 4 Galen can put in work and can be useful, but again, I think there are just not enough reasons to constantly be relying on him. I think he's good, but, you know, you do want to get him duped. I guess I'd argue that he deserves to be there. But it's not like everybody's cup of tea. I personally do have like a rank 1 unduped Galen. I have 2 generic awakening gems. I have a cosmic awakening gem. I just don't really want to give it to him. Because the metas that he's good for, he's very, very good for. But in like a vanilla situation, he's solid. But he's not what he used to be, in my opinion. So, I mean, I think that's fair. Now, Baron Zemo is a top 10 prestige champion, so people probably want him anyways. And Baron Zemo, I find, again, to be very kind of situational. There will be situations when you want to have him. And then in general, I just don't think he kind of holds up well enough. I will say that in like questing and across the broader areas of the game, you can do some very cool and interesting things with him, and it is good to have type of champion. And then it's Cassandra Nova, and this might be just purely my lack of information, but as much as I have talked about people who do have her, not you know, super hyped about her. They do not put Cassandra above like Dazzler, Gentle, or Jean, and so on and so forth. She's not that scary defensively, like once you kind of learn how to fight her. And offensively, she's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, that's one. She's not as fast necessarily as she's meant to appear. And I do want to know more about her, but so far from what I have seen and what I have heard, kind of lagging behind a bit. That's not to say that my opinion will not change once I do obtain her myself. Because I do not have her. Now, the next tier, I think all of these are like very good champions now. They're like, you know, solid, good, / great. I think every single one of these champions would land somewhere in the bottom of their respective class top 10s or in the middle of their respective class top 10s at this point. Zola, like up until a few months ago, would have been significantly higher. But there just appears to be more and more champions that completely run through Zola. And again, with the release of Colin, now Caroline Dean, I think his impact is just going to kind of be reduced a bit. I do think he's still good, absolutely worth to have, absolutely worth ranking up, but not necessarily up there. And Dazzler, again, I think Dazzler's crazy good, but I think we have been seeing kind of like less of her excelling due to one reason or another. And the opposite direction here is Gentle. I think Gentle, with the time, as time goes on, is kind of proving himself more and more, because he's kind of more annoying as a defender than many people realize. And he's fairly freestyle to be used defensively. He's not the best attacker, in my opinion, by a mile, but he has like a very solid mix of decent on defense and, you know, usable on attack. And then we have Bastion. And again, everybody thinks I hate Bastion. I don't. Bastion is a very, very good Alliance War champion. And he's very cool. Okay, so here's the thing. The reason why I'm not super hyped on Bastion is just from my personal observation in the Battlegrounds matches, where majority of the time when I see somebody using Bastion, they're not fast and they do take quite a bit of damage. I've hardly ever seen like a very impressive Bastion fight, if ever at that. And either everybody that I match using Bastion kind of suck at using Bastion, or Bastion's not as good of a champion as many people think he is. In Battlegrounds, that is specifically Battlegrounds. In Alliance War, he's one of the best Alliance War champions in my opinion, so he's absolutely worth to have. kind of spoke about high evolutionary as well. Is more of a stall type of defender. Not too many people fight him still, myself included, because I just typically end up banning him because I haven't practiced enough against him. But he is super high in prestige up there, so, you know, a useful acquisition. And now, champions that are amazing. These are what I would say borderline must-have champions, if not must-have champions. I think Carolina Dean is gonna be coming in the contest of Wrecking Ball, because obviously she just not only nukes all the tech champions and does it very well, like Zola and stuff like that, she is also usable against a plethora of the harder defensive champions in the game, like Yelena, for instance. She's very good against Yelena. Like Bullseye, she does Bullseye, you know, very well, because you need to hit Bullseye very little. Your glancing kind of saves a lot of incoming damage to you, and you gain power, you know, passively, and, you know, she does a lot of matchups very well. Like I said, you know, Bullseye and Yelena, and then she's usable against, like, Serpent, and so on and so forth. So I think she's very cool. And Jean has been very, very solid. I do think Jean is a bit step behind the top two champions. But overall, she's solid on defense, can work as a stall, can still mess people up, you know, with the reverse controls, especially in some of the trickier metas. And then offensively, she's also perfectly usable and good. One of the best things about Jean is that I have a good reason not to run Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I hate that champion. Right, and then we have Yelena. And I really like Yelena. Again, a couple months ago, Yelena would have been a tier up. But at this point, Yelena is just getting a counter after a counter after a counter. If you take a look at the most recent champion releases, here, 2025 champions, and sorted out by release. So, Yelena got released, and then we have Carolina Dean that can nuke her. We have Cassandra. Now we're gonna get Silver Samurai. Then we obviously had Onslaught and Jean that were perfectly reasonable for that fight as well. Then it turns out like Spider-Woman can be decently good against that fight, and General Okoye can also, you know, manage it decently well. So they did release Yelena, but at the same time, this year so many champions have been kind of geared to being able to counter her. Then it becomes kind of a trickier job to use her to a full benefit. The coolest thing about Yelena, though, is I do think she is decent enough offensively. So it still makes her to be like a very great addition to every deck. And obviously the fact that she's super high in prestige is awesome. Then we have Okoye. And I don't think I need to say much about Okoye. You know, Kabam bug fixed her like 18 times. And nonetheless, throughout it all, she functions great. The fact that, you know, she does not only do Science Champions, the fact that she nukes the Bullseyes, and now with the increased relevance to champions like Spider-Woman, for instance, you know, Okoye being one of the best counters to that, she's just a very great to have, very potent offensive nuke type of champion that's very easy to play. You can't ask too much of that. And this up here is kind of like a special group in my opinion, because I do think both of these champions are effectively, arguably top 5, top 6 champions in the game. I'm not 100% sure which one I would place higher, but the way I see the game right now would be top 3 are, in no order in particular, Serpent, Onslaught, and Thanos. I think those are the 3 best champions in the game for competitive players. Then I think spots 4 and 5 belong to Nico and Spider-Woman. And I think spot 6 now goes to Photon. Because previously I used to talk about top 4 champions in the game, which was Photon, Onslaught, Thanos, and Serpent. Now I refer to top 6, because I do think both of these are in top 6. And I do think Spider-Woman is, at this point, the best science champion in the game, and better than Photon is. And I do think that Nico is probably the best Mystic champion in the game. At this point, I'd have to say Nico is likely the best Mystic champion in the game. So there we go. That is how I see the new Titan Crystal. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next one. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all